There's been a major backstage reshuffle in TNA Wrestling. AEW decided against releasing Rey Fenix, and Hulk Hogan and Real American are being sued. It's time for the news. Times they are changing in TNA Wrestling, and yesterday a major backstage reshuffle was announced. This was initially reported by PW Insider, with then TNA releasing a statement to PW Insider clarifying some of these changes. First off, the new TNA Wrestling president is Carlos Silva. He was hired by Anthem back in December of 2024. He's going to be taking over from Anthony Ciccione. George Veras is the new exec producer of the Anthem Sports Group. He's a 10-time Emmy Award-winning president and CEO of Pro Football Hall of Fame Enterprises, as well as the president of Veras Communications Incorporated. With this, unfortunately, a few departures from the company. Josh Matthews, former TNA commentator who had since been working in a backstage role. He had been heading up a lot of their digital stuff, as well as working as a producer for the company, as well as Christy Hemme, no longer with the company. She'd been heading up the company's social media as well. I think one thing that people don't realize about TNA is it's very much all hands on deck, and lots and lots of people do lots and lots of different things. Like Josh Matthews will of course be best known for his time in TNA as one of the announce team. He was there on commentary. Love him or hate him, I wasn't a fan of that, but he had been doing a hell of a lot behind the scenes, and he had been with the company for 10 years as well. So he had been there for a long time. Christy Hemme rejoining the company a few years ago. I've got to say, like, with Josh Matthews doing the digital stuff, I think TNA's digital stuff has gotten really, really good. Social media as well. They're so on it. You'll have noticed, like, if something big happens in one of the bigger promotions, WWE or AEW, they're good to go with some TNA nostalgia every single time. It's
absolutely,
like Cody coming back at WrestleMania, instantly they did like a video. They had it up within like 30 minutes. It's like all of Cody Rhodes' best moments in TNA, where he was barely there, obviously. But they were really hot on it, and I actually think Josh Matthews was doing a really, really good job, from what we could tell anyway, behind the scenes. Interesting timing, this, obviously. Yeah,
absolutely. Hopefully when all this sort of change up happens, things will still sort of continue on a upwards trajectory for TNA, because it felt like they were definitely starting to gain and garner momentum again, and then all the stuff happened with Scott D'Amore as well, and it felt like things were maybe taking a bit of a turn. Josh Matthews, though, as you said, like, granted, whether you loved or hated his commentary, he was somebody who, I shouldn't have said loved, liked or hated his commentary. He was someone who, from various stories and things that I've read in the past, he was an incredibly hardworking person, like, behind the scenes, and took a lot of pride in that work as well. So for someone who's been with the company for so long and also kind of, like, you know, knows it inside out as well, it's a big loss, isn't it?
It is a big loss, for sure. Tony, don't get any ideas. Commentary's fine as it is on AEW. Just leave it for a bit. Meanwhile, by the way, Mark Brown, who was a director, you may know the name of that director with Ring of Honor when it was owned by Sinclair, and has worked for New Japan. He is coming in as a director for TNA as well. So lots and lots of changes there. Ricky Starks has been pulled from an indie show, and perhaps the least surprising news that we are going to talk about today, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling announcing on X. Important announcement due to circumstances beyond our control. I wonder what they are. Ricky Starks will not be in attendance on Saturday in Tannery Row Ale House. He was going to be facing Aaron Solo at the event, but obviously popped up without a name, seemingly, on WWE's NXT show on Tuesday night. The Undertaker's been bigging up Ricky Starks, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He said on the Busted Open radio show, he praised him, saying, "Yeah, I'm training at this gym, and I noticed this kid there every day. Doesn't say anything, really respectful. As the training went along, we needed different spotters and different help. He was always there, right away. Finally, we struck up a conversation, and he told me he was trying to break into the business, and I kind of talked to him about different things. On one of the Royal Rumbles that Michelle McCool was a surprise guest in, she wanted to get in the ring, and he came down and trained with her. I've seen him a few times here and there, and I've always had great conversations with him. He's such a good kid, such a respectful kid."
Big words from a big man. Yeah. That's got to be pretty nice to hear.
Absolutely.
The respectful thing especially. I'm excited to see what Ricky Starks does in
Me too.
NXT. It doesn't surprise me that they put him on the NXT brand, especially with WrestleMania fast approaching. They talked about that in the news yesterday.
Yeah.
I think it'd be difficult to slot him in there. And it'll be very interesting to see what he does in WWE, where, you know, a lot of people backstage, including the world champion or the WWE champion, like him an awful lot. So it'll be cool to see what he does next.
Yeah.
Speaking of those AEW releases, news coming out that AEW actually considered but decided against releasing Rey Fenix. So lots and lots at the start of this week, obviously leaving the company. Ricky Starks, as we just talked about, Malachi Black, Miro, and Bear Boulder for various reasons there, of course. And they did indeed consider releasing Rey Fenix, who is long wanted out now of his AEW contract. Sean Ross Sapp talking about this this week.
Oh, sorry. He said, I heard Friday that AEW releases were either happening or coming. At that moment, I thought it was just the Bear Boulder situation, which they fortunately very quickly took care of. I had heard for a while that within AEW, they had at least considered releasing or letting contracts lapse on a few talent that were not happy and wanted to go elsewhere. At one point, they considered Rey Fenix. They didn't end up doing that.
Obviously, Phoenix has had this injury time added to his contract because he was out for quite a while and has been unable to join Penta. It's fairly obvious that he wants to go and join Penta.
Yes.
In WWE, Penta's presentation and the booking of him has been really, really fantastic. I say that after he had a match on Main Event this week, but no, like he was still there in a video package on Raw. It'll be interesting to see where Penta is as far as the pecking order in WWE goes by the time Rey is ready to join the company, because Rey will end up there for sure. Do they scrap the Penta solo push? Do they put them back together? One would assume they'd put them back together, but I don't know. Penta might be so far up that...
I mean, that's the good thing about Phoenix and Penta, is that they're both incredible solo singles superstars as well. And obviously they've had incredible matches against each other in the past, so that can always be a direction too. So you do have the option if you don't necessarily want to. Oh, but then again, I guess if you pit one against the other, now I'm thinking on the fly, everybody, you don't want to stop someone else's momentum, unless Penta at that point has had great momentum leading up to the, Phoenix coming into the company if he does later on.
They could revitalize the tag division in
Absolutely.
WWE. It'd be interesting to see them together once again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think to me it totally depends where Penta's at. With regard to the Rey Fenix release stuff, a big part of me is just like, you know what, if you're not going to use him, which seemingly they're not going to use him on TV, just let him go. But maybe Tony, seeing the way that Penta has been presented, he doesn't want to repeat of that because it perhaps reflects poorly on AEW. Speaking of AEW, an AEW star and a legend of the business, it's got to be said, has announced that he's going to be retiring in 3 years. He's hinted at this in the past. Dustin Rhodes talking on the Battleground podcast saying, I've had this plan the last couple of years, who I want to finish up with. That's going to take place in 3 years. It's going to be tough to step away, but by no means am I anywhere on Sting's level, but I do want that same kind of out. I think I've earned it. And he continues, this is my favorite part of this interview. He said that he wants to win his last match. He goes, I want to win. I want to win that last match. I don't want to lose. It means a lot to me. I've been putting a lot of thought into it. I would say probably about 3 years. Things change. We'll see where they take us. It's hard enough to even say it's almost time, Dustin. That's tough. I love him. He's still like, he had my favorite match in like company history with him and Cody. I think it's like, it was the most emotional match of like one of the most emotional matches of the last decade, full stop. I don't know why he wants to win his last match,
why
but
not?
You do you.
Go out on a high, he knows what he wants,
it's not the typically done thing, but sure, yeah, maybe there's something in mind. Maybe he's got this opponent in mind, and I don't know who that could be, where the better story is for Dustin to win at the end. That's the only thing that I can think of. I don't think this is about him just wanting to win while he's going out.
No, maybe I guess, I know he says he's not on Sting's level. Sting won, and then they just relinquished the tag team titles, right? Why not? I think, to be honest as well, I think Dustin's doing some of probably the best work of his career as well.
Amazing.
Like, he's still so good.
The MJF stuff this week was great.
It's been really, and it's just his actual in-ring acumen as well is phenomenal, and he just seems to keep getting better too, which is, when you don't necessarily think of that when a wrestler starts sort of getting on in years, and he's just been brilliant. So yeah, you do. He knows what he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the
Let
day,
him do
why
it.
not?
He's
Let
done
him
so.
do it.
I would still classify him as somebody who is underrated
Yes,
as well.
for sure.
I think he's like so talented. He's such a great storyteller, and he's slowed down a little bit in the ring, but he can certainly still go. Certainly, you know, given his age as well, it's very impressive what he can do. But yeah, let him win. Go on,
Let him
Tony.
win. Go on.
We finish off with the news of Hulk Hogan and Real American Beer are being sued. It's been a rough old month for Terry Bollea, and now an Akron woman, Goblin Town, an Akron woman, is suing the former professional wrestler, better known as Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, better known as Hulk Hogan, and his beer company after she was hit in the head with a sealed can of beer last August. So this has just been filed at the beginning of February 10th, and the allegation is that there's negligence causing injury after this beer was lobbed at her, and her attorney said
It's unconscionable to think that you're going to go to a bar to see a celebrity and end up being pelted with a can of beer. I shouldn't laugh. Attorney Eric Tafel said she had an open wound on her forehead. It was pretty big. She ended up needing a number of stitches to her head, and she's going to have some permanent scarring from that.
Horrible. There's nothing to laugh about there. It's just another horrible thing happening to Hulk Hogan. They did say in the filing that they didn't even know exactly who
through
the beer. So I think like maybe Real American, that lawsuit will be allowed to proceed. Pure speculation here. But if they don't know it was Hulk Hogan, maybe that doesn't happen. I don't know his direct relationship with the company, like how much of the company he owns. But just another bad thing happening to Hulk Hogan after being booed and then not being able to make Saturday night's main event because of family commitments. And now he's getting sued. He is no stranger to the courtroom. It might make it there. It might not. We'll keep you updated, and we'll be back with more Hulk Hogan news and maybe some other stuff very, very soon.